Welcome everyone to my Tyranny Let's Play. My name's Macsen. Tyranny is an isometric style RPG made by Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian has a long track record of making very good RPGs. They are responsible for Fallout New Vegas, for example, and Pillars of Eternity. Tyranny is actually the follow-up game to Pillars of Eternity. It uses the same game engine and many of the game's mechanics found within Pillars, but they've had a bit of an upgrade in many areas and a lot of subtle changes. I've been impressed so far actually with a lot of the changes to how things work within Tyranny and the user interface, for example. Tyranny I've played up until the start of Act 2 so far, so this Let's Play won't be a blind Let's Play. It's going to be in a very min-max style as well, on the hardest difficulty setting, Path of the Damned. Because it's min-max style, I'm going to be basically trying to take advantage of every little thing I can when it comes to mechanics, and there's going to be a lot of explanation about how things work and how you can get the most out of your player characters. Right, let's actually start a new game then and select Path of the Damned. I should thank Paradox as well, who publish and market the game for Obsidian. They were kind enough to provide me with a copy of the game. During the course of this Let's Play there will be a lot of spoilers, obviously. This is a story-based game, so I just like to let you know that at the beginning. Right, let's get started then and see the initial intro, which tells you all about the world found within Tyranny.
For over 400 years, the armies of Kairos the Overlord have swept across the known world. All who stood against them fell before their might. Even the Archons, women and men of immense power, were forced to kneel, chained to the Overlord's will. Now Kairos' final conquest has come to our corner of the world, and two of the Overlord's armies compete for the honor of taking our lands. The elite disfavored, and the teeming horde of the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Nerat, spymaster and Archon of secrets, guides the fierce and undisciplined masses of the Scarlet Chorus. With each battle, the Scarlet Chorus grows stronger, as the defeated are given a simple choice: serve or die. Graven Ash, Archon of War and the Overlord's most loyal general, leads the disfavored. Though small in number, Kairos' ironclad legion has never met true defeat in open battle. Watching over the two generals is Tunon, the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice, eldest of Kairos' minions. Tunon brings Kairos' laws to newly conquered lands, aided by the Fatebinders, judges and executioners of the Overlord's laws. You were among the youngest of the court of Fatebinders when Kairos' armies came to our lands. How could we have known that the fate of thousands would rest in your hands?
So this is character creation found within Tyranny, and of course character creation is absolutely vital when it comes to RPGs, and the content of this first video will mainly focus on it, if not in its entirety, most of the video. There's also a special Conquest feature found within Tyranny, which I'll be discussing more about a bit later on, which I'll also be doing in this first video. So first things first, we have to pick our gender and body type and skin tone. I'm not going to be playing a rather elegant looking Amazonian woman. I'm going to be playing a big, ugly, brutish bloke. By the looks of things, I think that's what I'm going to do. I've actually planned everything out, so I know exactly what I'm going to be picking here. Let's move on. Right, appearance. Let's pick some options here. So there's a variety of portraits to choose from. I'm going to be selecting that one, which may give you a clue to the type of character I might be picking later on. So let's have a look at the face. Actually, first things first, I'm going to select facial here and here in general. I'm going to have that option for here. Got to have some facial here. I'm going to be picking a Mighty Tash. And for voice, definitely the aggressive
Quiet down.
option.
I'm injured. Tired. Let's rest.
I think I'll have a bit lighter here. You can actually have tattoos. And I am going to pick some arm tattoos. You can see there's a variety of options though. If I pick that, they will more clearly show up. And some of them are even on the character's back as well, I believe, if I can find one. There we go, on his legs and back there. I'm going to pick this one though, just his arms. Should I change the face? Is that one? That one? Let's pick that face, I think. Okay, so that's appearance for our character. Let's move on. History. So the history basically has an element, well, during the story part of the game, characters can react to what your profession used to be before you became a fate binder. I'm actually going to select Lawbreaker. The history also determines certain skill points as well, and Lawbreaker is probably the best for the character I'm going to go, and I'll be showing why shortly. So, Lawbreaker, accused of a crime you most certainly did commit. You stood before Tunon, the adjudicator, Archon of Justice, and argued your case with eloquence and conviction. Impressed by your logic, reason, and confidence, he found you guilty anyway. It is rumoured that Tunon selects many of his agents from his prisoners. Who better to catch the wicked than knows versed in such ways? In his mercy, Tunon offered you the choice of two sentences: decades languishing in prison or a lifetime serving him in a court of fate binders. The choice was an easy one, and instead of seeing the inside of a cell, you were trained in letters and numbers, magic and war. The laws you once broke are now yours to interpret and enforce. You can actually right click on the highlighted text as well to get a bit more information on whatever it's highlighting. Let's move on. So when it comes to combat, what are we going to be selecting? There's actually a huge amount of options here. There's more spell type options, unarmed, dual wielding, throwing type weapons, sword and shield, greatsword, two-handed weapons, and bows, short bows. I'm actually going to be playing as a throwing type character with a shield, and you can actually pick one weapon type and then pick another weapon type. Each selection gives different skill points. Well, I'm actually going to be doubling down on Javelin. There is a very specific reason why I'm doing that. Basically, I want to maximize skills in certain places, and by doing that, that's going to give me the best option. For the actual spell options, I wouldn't recommend you pick those even if you want to play as a mage. You can actually find spells within the game relatively early on for all of these. But let's continue on anyway. So I've selected Heart Shot for my first starting ability and Hobble for the second one. We don't get any other options actually for the throwing weapons. I'm not a big fan of Hobble, but selecting both of these will allow me to get more advanced and more useful abilities later on, or talents later on, so that's why one of the reasons I'm picking both of those. Heart Shot is actually very good though. Okay, so let's move on and pick the banner for our character. The banner often shows up on the world map, so that's when it comes into play. I'm going to pick that eagle banner there. I'm going to have a white eagle. I can actually change the colors of my character's armor as well. So there's a variety of options. What do you think about pink? Maybe not. Let's select blue for the trousers. Matches tattoos, I think. And move on again to the name. My name for this character is going to be Govanon, which is a in Celtic mythology during the Bronze and Iron Age specifically. That's a character from then. And this game is mainly set in the Bronze and early Iron Age, so I thought that'd be a pretty good name. Okay, let's move on. And for attributes, this is very, very important. When you actually level up your character within Tyranny, you do actually get an extra point to spend on attributes, which is a nice new change from Pillars. That didn't used to be the case in that game. But yeah, for the actual attributes I should select here, you can see that a couple is highlighted. This is because I doubled down in Javelin, and both of these are very good when it comes to throwing type weapons. So I'm going to min-max this. Now all of the stats are pretty important. They're all much more balanced than they were in Pillars. They all do different things now within Tyranny, and they have actually different names for the most part as well from Pillars. I think some of them are the same, Might and Resolve. I think the others are different though. So I am actually going to be spending my points on these. Quickness, I'm going to max out at 18. That's the maximum I can have. I think I'm only going to put 16 for now into Might, but I will add more points into it later on. So Might, what it does, it's attack, ability, strength, but it also gives advantages to certain skills as well, which it doesn't really show you very well here. So I'm going to discuss more about these attributes later on when I can show that in better detail. I am going to select or put a couple more points into vitality as well as health. I could have maybe maxed that out. Well, probably wouldn't be an awful idea. But yeah, I'll stick a couple into vitality. And yeah, I think that's the stats or attributes I'm going to have for this character. Moving on again, we find ourselves at skills. So we're very good at thrown weapons, obviously, because we picked a couple of javelin expertise. And you can see on the right there, within that window pane, tells you a bit of a breakdown. You can see that Lawbreaker actually gives you a couple of points into thrown weapons. I get 20 points available to increase my starting skills that you can see here. To be honest though, the weapon skills, in my opinion, aren't all that important to increase with your character. The three key skills that you should really be increasing are Athletics, Subterfuge and Lore. These have a huge impact when it comes to interacting with objects within the game and also within conversations as well. And if you start with a low amount in any of these stats, then it makes it much harder to increase those stats in future. So actually increasing the points tally straight away is a very good idea, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I want to get these up to certain thresholds. I'm going to be increasing Lore. Now Lore is generally used for magical interactions, and you can see there's some details here as well on when in other circumstances when it's used. But for all characters actually within Tyranny, it's very useful. In fact, most lins are in fact, because there's no class system found within Tyranny. You can effectively do pretty much whatever you want. Even if you start with a character who isn't particularly good at something, there's a mechanic where you kind of become what you do, similar a bit to Skyrim. But said that the starting stats and attributes that you start with do play a big role on how good you can be long term at any one thing. Lore is very important now, so I will definitely be increasing that. I've only got 2 points actually left now from spending so many of them, getting that up to a decent amount. I am going to put those into Subterfuge. A bit short maybe on Athletics compared to what I would like, but it should be okay. I can gain much more experience for that later on. for the actual background that we chose earlier on, Lawbreaker, if I highlight certain things here, we should be able to see where it was spent. Here we go. Subterfuge, we gained an extra 6 there, and we gained 2 for thrown weapons. You always get 8 points no matter which history you actually pick, but they all give points in different areas. I find Diplomat is probably the best in most circumstances because the points from that only go into the support skills. If my memory is correct, let's select that temporarily. It's 5 into Subterfuge and 3 into Diplomat. And because those skills and athletics are the most important, Diplomat is often a very good option. But I wanted to pick Lawbreaker because hopefully we'll get some story events with it during the course of the Let's Play. I haven't tried it out before, so I guess we'll find out. Looks like I have to respend these as well because I went back a bit. Right, that's all correct. Let's move on again. And this is the last stage of character creation and arguably the most important bit. Okay, let's press next and get started on Conquest. I think there's an intro video for it at some point. I'm not sure if it plays immediately.
All the world has fallen to Kairos. And now the Overlord's eye is on the Tiers, our home. The last corner of the world free of Kairos' reign. 2 armies, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, march south from the Northern Empire, the last realm to fall to Kairos a century prior. In the early days of 428, Kairos' armies arrive at the Gates of Judgment, the mountainous border that we Tiersmen so long believed unassailable. Unable to agree on a unified plan of defense, the various leaders of the Tiers sit and wait for each other to deal with the conquerors, until it's too late.
So this is Conquest. It's kind of a mini game found within Tyranny, and it has big impact on how the game plays. It basically is what happened within the first few years of the war, and what actions your character, the Fatebinder, took within those first few years. It adds a lot of replayability to the game. That's kind of the plan behind it. And yeah, so you can have a different option. I think literally it changes how people react to you. It definitely does, in fact. I know that for a fact. And also even the maps has an impact on that as well, I believe. So let's read a lot of text coming up then. So during the Conquest, you will decide your character's actions during Kairos' invasion of the Tiers, shaping a world through which you will adventure over the course of the game. Each choice you make affects your character and how major factions of the Tiers respond to you. Your decisions matter. Choose wisely. The Bastard City. The Bastard City stood on a northern border between Kairos. You can see if I right click on that, more detail. I guess I should do that. If you want to pause, you can read through all of that. What did it say? Border between Kairos' empire and the Tiers, built upon a natural harbour at the crossroads between realms. The city was a nexus of commerce. To the Tiers, it was the centre of all wealth. To a northerner, it was little more than a backwater trading post. Its symbolic status as a gateway to the continent made it a natural first target in Kairos' military conquest. Circumstances were ideal for you to prove your worth as a soldier in Kairos' armies. Taking a city would send a message to the rest of the Tiers. Kairos' will is insurmountable. So you get a couple of options to choose from, basically. The direction that your game can take in all circumstances through the conquest options. So we've got Infiltrate the Tiers, both armies send their forces to prepare the way, or Gates of Judgment, in the first major engagement of the war, Kairos' armies cross the mountains and establish a foothold. Now I have actually prepared a path that I want to take, and I do have a plan for the faction that I actually want to end up allying to eventually. It's not cast in stone though. I'm going to leave myself the option of maybe changing my idea a bit later on if there's a demand to go in a certain direction. So I'm going to pick Gates of Judgment first of all. The armies of Kairos took the battle to the Gates of Judgment, trumpeting the opening call of the conquest of the Tiers. The two armies brought their distinctive sense of order and chaos to the assault. You went to battle alongside the army whose approach best suited your strengths. So we've got join the battle alongside the disfavored, or we've got join the battle alongside the chorus. I'm going to be picking this one. You rushed with the chaotic mass of the Scarlet Chorus, flanked the Bastard City's army, and drove them to flee. Gates of Judgment. You caught the mercenary army unprepared for the mania and disorder of the Scarlet Chorus. Your forces overwhelmed the Tiers' defences, in a few short hours hacking and burning their way into the continent. Any mercenaries who survived the battle found themselves initiated into the Scarlet Chorus, tortured by ruthless interrogators, or made the sport of competition as the army marched ruthlessly forward. And two options yet again. So we have to judge the enemy. You decided the fate of enemy soldiers captured in battle, or feeding the host. You found a way to feed Kairos' armies in enemy territory. I'm going to select to judge the enemy. The soldiers of the Tiers fell by the hundreds, and Kairos' armies could not agree on how to handle what few survivors they dragged back to the camp. Befitting your role, the commanders turned to you to decide the fate of those who occupied prison pens. There were only enough prisoners to support the plan of a single army. So we could enslave the army or conscript the army. I'm going to conscript the army in this circumstance. So you gave the prisoners the chance to serve in Kairos' army or die. The Scarlet Chorus was in need of extra troops to fill up the vanguards, and your former enemies would occupy those slots nicely. To judge the enemy, you armed cooperative ex-soldiers with scrap weapons and tossed them into the vanguard of the next Scarlet Chorus assault. Those who survived were welcome to take up the arms and armor of the fallen and eke out a desperate struggle to survive in Kairos' military. After their first victory, you rewarded the new recruits with the opportunity to execute their wounded or reluctant countrymen. You can see this is a very evil-focused game so far. Taking a Bastard City, the armies of Kairos amassed around the Bastard City, the first bastion of the Tiers to fall. Both armies longed to storm the walled outpost, the Scarlet Chorus howling for plunder, and the disfavored forming an unbreakable shield wall. Your prowess on the field of battle had carried them this far, but there was one more step before total victory. Both of the armies had inspired schemes to take the Bastard City. Which did you support? So there's actually three different options here. One happens to be the option for tune-on, or perhaps the neutral option it could be. You led a mixed band of disfavored and Scarlet Chorus scouts over the city walls to sabotage its defences. And this decision is actually probably the most important during Conquest, because it actually gives you an ability. So you can see in this case, it gives you Concealing Shadows. This is a rather defensive ability, which I don't think, although we're very good with Subterfuge with this character, it's not one I want to actually go for, I think. It limits your chance to actually do damage while you're protecting yourself. The other option here is you join the disfavored vanguard in a direct assault upon the city gates. No fortification would stand before the unstoppable legion. This gives you warrior's respite, which is extra health for a period of time, but you once again do less damage. This uses the athletic skill, which we're okay in, but not as good as I perhaps would like, but we can get more points into that later. And the last option is you join the Scarlet Chorus in setting fire to the city and blocking the gates. The defenders would surrender or burn, and this gives you a magical ability for fire, Searing Palm, and you need Control Fire and Law for that. All of these are actually good in different circumstances. For my character though, I'm actually going to pick this one, Warrior's Respite. We don't have an awful lot of vitality or health, but I think it would still be useful, and I do actually plan on increasing my vitality a bit later on in the game after perhaps adding to quickness and might. Right, so let's select that. So you can see I've already taken different options, Chorus and Disfavored. Taking the Bastard City with heroic courage and legendary determination, the Disfavored battered the gates of the Bastard City to splinters. Those who fell under the consistent hail of arrows or cascades of boiling pitch left the battlefield temporarily, only to appear hours later as Archon Graven Ashes. That's the Archon, yeah. Which it mentions. Protection healed their numerous wounds. In time, the gates gave way and Kairos' forces spilled inside the city walls, with resounding cheers of victory. So that's the first stage of Conquest. The Bastard City for 28 TR. Bastard City settled into a new state of normalcy, with every tower displaying Kairos' banner. Your name was whispered alongside rumours of a decorated career to come. The armies divided into two fronts and migrated south. Tunon sent word that you were to join the next frontier of Kairos' conquest, either as judge and overseer of the settlement of Leviathan's Crossing, or as a war advisor with the armies advancing into the realm of Apex. In this case, I'm going to pick Apex. So it mentions the troops of the mountain realm of Apex stood idle in the safety of their valley, biding their time as their neighbours in a bastard tier fell. In the second year of war, a joint force of Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus crossed over the mountains to take control of the tier's central valley. Apex. The mountain nation of Apex, ruled for generations by the Queen of House Vendrian, stood at the heart of the tiers. No army could bypass the landlocked realm without leaving their flank exposed to attack. By the second year of the war, the Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus had pushed deep into the tiers. Elements of both armies were dispatched to conquer Apex. Tunon assigned you to accompany them, tasked with bringing Kairos' law to the territory, as well as keeping an eye on both armies. So, as usual, two different options. So we have the Battle of Edgerin Pass. The Archon of Stone's assault was perhaps too successful. And Denial of Strength. A new school of mages presented problems and opportunities. I'll be picking this one. A school of water mages loyal to the Tearsman posed a substantial threat. The disfavored wished to annihilate the school, while the Scarlet Chorus insisted on capturing the mages, wishing to learn of their craft. So we could slaughter the mages, or capture the mages, and that's actually the option I'm going to go for. So you sided with the Scarlet Chorus, ordering the mage elders taken alive for interrogation. Though countless lives were lost taking the mages into custody, the Scarlet Chorus praise your name as they drag the beaten elders of the school to the Voices of Narat's tent as a wave of screams and incoherent pleas reached their crescendo. The Scarlet Chorus soldiers outside cheered for their Archon. The disfavored adjourned to their camp in grim silence, claiming the chorus lacked the will and desire to fully wipe out all traces of the enemy school. Next options: poisoning the well, poor communication led to the gruesome death of disfavored scouts, or a captive captain. Kairos' forces debated over the fate of an enemy captain. When Kairos' forces captured a celebrated enemy hero, the armies bickered over his fate. The disfavored wanted him set free to convince his peers of Kairos' mercy. The Scarlet Chorus wanted him flayed and staked as an example. So we could use the captain to send a message, or use the captain's body as a grim warning. I am going to favour the disfavoured in this circumstance. You agreed with the disfavoured plan and sent the enemy captain back with a message. All those who surrendered or cooperated would be treated with deserving respect as subjects of Kairos' peace. Shocked by your clemency, the enemy captain vowed to deliver his message in full and paid his respects before departing for his encampment. Though typically more compromising, the disfavored praised your innovative thinking. The Scarlet Chorus despised what they viewed as resources wasted only to release a known enemy back into the wild. The fall of Apex. With the defeat of Apex an inevitability, the armies of Kairos met to discuss how to put an end to this stage of the conquest. Both armies agreed to send an offer of parley. Along with their acceptance, the enemy requested that you appear at the meeting. Word of your fair dealings had apparently spread to their ranks. How did you orchestrate the surrender of the realm of Apex? The fall of Apex. We could challenge the Queen or negotiate a surrender. This is the option I'm going to take. Through days of mediation, you negotiated the surrender of the valley to Kairos' forces, putting an end to further bloodshed. Your former enemies were loath to part with their lands, but they were even more reluctant to continue a war they were losing at every turn. The Tearsmen are a stubborn lot, and despite their grim situation, it still took days of discussion and diplomacy to show them the madness of tenacity. On the third day of mediation, the rules of Apex rulers, finally submitted to your terms of surrender, putting an end to the war in the valley and freeing up Kairos' forces to march deeper into the tiers. So, next stage, Lands of Apex finally rested into the hands of Kairos' forces. This is the last stage as well. The Scarlet Chorus paused to revel in victory while its favoured prepared for the next fight, affording themselves but an evening's rest. Kairos' armies radiated out from the conquered citadel and worked their way across the tiers. The Disfavored and Scarlet Chorus aimed to dominate as much territory as possible in the coming year. Your distinguished reputation in Kairos' military left the choice of your next destination yours to make. So you have the choice between Azure, Stalwart, or the Vellum Citadel. You can see they're located in those 3 locations. I am going to be going to Stalwart. Stalwart. The realm of Stalwart was best known for its proud army, disciplined, courageous, and undefeated on their home soil. Skill and resolve made Stalwart a military power that Kairos' forces approached with due caution. With its 7th position, Stalwart had been largely safe from war, watching for 2 years as its neighbours fell to Kairos' forces. On the dawn of the 3rd year of war, Kairos' forces were finally poised to invade the Stalwart Peninsula and subdue the tier's most vaunted army. So the options: marching on empty, tragedy struck when hungry Scarlet Chorus soldiers appropriated disfavored supplies. A contentious setback, stunning defeat led to accusations among Kairos' armies. I'm going to be selecting marching on empty. The stalwart defenders burned their crops as they retreated, leaving the invaders little to forage. Starving, the Scarlet Chorus mob raided from the disfavored's well-maintained supply lines, incurring casualties on both sides. Punish the Scarlet Chorus, or order the disfavored to share supplies. That is the option I'm going to be picking here. By your command, the disfavored shared their provisions. The thieves each lost a hand for their treachery. Scarlet Chorus commanders argued that the Horde was starving. Being the largest of Kairos' armies, they were also the least provisioned. The men were wrong to steal, but the disfavored were equally wrong to withhold supplies from their allies. You agreed with the Chorus version of events and ordered that the disfavored supplies be shared. The thieves themselves would be punished with loss of a hand and returned to the front lines. Don't think they'd be too useful now. The disfavored found this a sickening aberration of justice and surrendered their supplies with grudging acceptance. Next options: the Beasts of Stalwart, a new Scarlet Chorus tactic, provoked disfavored rage. Better dead than red. A string of mass suicides led to the Scarlet Chorus making demands of the disfavored. I'm going to pick the Beast of Stalwart. Scarlet Chorus mages discovered a spell to turn beastman slaves against their handlers. The army prepared to deploy this tactic elsewhere, but the disfavored protested the use of unsanctioned magical practices ran contrary to Kairos' law, and beastmen were considered too erratic to be relied upon even as shock troops. Agree with the disfavored or agree with the Scarlet Chorus? That's the option I'm taking. I don't know the consequences of all of these options. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in enough detail earlier on, but yeah, I have, as you can see all through this, got a good idea about what I'm picking. And we're nearly at the end now. You approved of the Scarlet Chorus's new innovation and ruled the technique and acceptable use of wartime magic. The Beast of Stalwart, the disfavored lambasted you for authorizing such a risky tactic. Kairos' armies also relied on beastman haulers, and the disfavored argued such magic would inevitably unravel supply lines and logistics. The Chorus, on the other hand, were emboldened by the decree and considered you an honourable patron of arcane inquiry. Though the Scarlet Chorus struggled to maintain a presence in Stalwart, this magic for enraging beastmen slaves was used to bloody effect throughout the countryside. The Edict of Storms. The disfavoured carved a slow, steady path into the heart of Stalwart and surrounded the enemy's massive fortress. With the main bulk of their forces defeated, the enemy leadership retreated to their mighty fortress, content to wait out the war. The Overlord answered this impudence with an Edict of Storms. On the peninsula, a devastating spell that would endure for as long as the cowardly hearts of Stalwart's leaders persisted in beating. Knowing before anyone else that the edict would occur, the voices of Narat lobbied you to deliver the mighty incantation. Aside from being given a 3-day window to read the edict, you received no other instructions. So we can give no warning, or we can warn the people, and that's the final option I'm going to take. In an attempt to ingratiate themselves with the people of Stalwart, the Scarlet Chorus insisted that warning be sent to the towns and villages, so that the people may prepare for the horror about to descend on them. Kairos' wrath was intended for the cowardly regents of Stalwart, not those unfortunates swept up in the calamity of their leadership. A warning in advance of the spell would give locals time to prepare for the devastation to come. You were content to let punishment fall on the innocent as lightly as Kairos' will allows. Comforted that you might yet spare lives, you broke the seal of Kairos' edict of storms and read the Overlord's incantation. The Edict of Storms. The clear skies darkened as you read the final words of the edict. A flurry of wind and rain whipped through the rolling plains, and craggy canyons turning rocks, uprooted trees, and hapless soldiers into hazardous shrapnel. Armed with a measure of foresight, you were able to remove yourself from the area before the storms grew more violent. I think there's a storm coming here, actually, where I am. Over time, nearby communities told of cyclones consisting of thousands of soldiers' worth of limbs, spears, armor, and skulls. What's more, the weather showed no sign of dissipating. Several units of disfavored who fought the enemy in spite of the advancing storm were caught up in the Overlord's magic. The few survivors regrouped and nursed their wounds. Their failure to topple the Stalwart Legion shamed them into believing the dead more fortunate. The name Stalwart fell from use. People took to calling it the Blade Grave. For the remade landscape festooned with the iron and bronze armaments of two once great legions. As Kairos' forces departed, you spared a glance back at the ruins of Stalwart, marvelling at your work. You didn't have long to rest before Tunon called you into service once more. And that's Conquest finally complete. You have reached the end of Kairos' conquest. Do you want to continue or erase your progress and start over? In this case, I definitely want to continue. You can always go back and change something if you don't like it. I mean, when you're first playing a game, you've got no idea about the consequences of certain things, and yeah, I don't know the consequences for everything I picked there. I do know some of it.
The year is 431. And Kairos' invasion has shattered all major opposition in the tiers. The Younger Realms, the Bastard Tier, the Free Cities. All who defied Kairos lay broken by battle, or bowed in surrender. The two armies of the Overlord, the Disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus, now control our lands. But our will is not yet extinguished. Not entirely. In the Valley of Vendrian's Well, those of us unwilling to bow to Kairos have banded together in defiance. Violating an oath of surrender from 2 years prior, we have staged a bloody uprising, murdering the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus garrison in a midnight assault. With their main forces spread across the tiers, the disfavored and Scarlet Chorus redeploy to Vendrian's Well to crush the resistance. But months pass with no definitive battle. As disagreement and discord paralyze the Archons, we bide our time and wait for our message of insurrection to spread across the tiers. The Overlord is not amused, and Kairos has one message for the Archons: crush the Oathbreakers or die. Kairos backs this threat with an edict, a magical commandment that can slay all in the valley should the order be ignored. The honor of proclaiming this edict fell to you. Sent across the mountains to Vendrian's Well, you carry the Overlord's edict to read before the Archons. As you finally make your way through the winding mountain passes into the valley, the ground trembles, and Kairos' magic seals the way behind you. You are trapped in Vendrian's Well, with Kairos' armies and the Oathbreakers. The only way to survive is to fulfill the terms of the Overlord's edict, in any way that you can.
Okay, so this is the start of Tyranny. Before I do anything though, after that long character creation setup, I should probably save the game. So, let's come into the menu and save. Character creation and Conquest definitely took a long time, so I think I'm going to have to call it the end of the first video at this point. There's an Edict of Storms outside my house at the moment as well, so it might be a good time to end the video as well because of that. So, I hope you enjoyed the video so far. During the next video, and of course throughout the Let's Play, I'll be going into much more detail about the game, my character, the attributes I selected and why I selected them. You can see the details of my character in much more detail there. And yeah, I'll be discussing that in the next video. There's a welcome to Tarata's screen here, which I guess I should read. If this is your first visit to the world of Tyranny, watch these windows to help you become familiar with the game. You can disable tutorial messages at any time from the game options menu. I'll probably keep those on during the Let's Play so you can read them for yourself if you happen to want to pause and check those out. I'll also show you the options at the beginning of the next video what I'm using, and yeah, just discuss more about the game in general and actually start playing it. Okay, so if you enjoyed this first video, I'd be very grateful to you if you actually leave the video a like. That boosts my videos in YouTube's search rankings, so people like yourself can actually find the videos in the first place. If they can't get found, they tend not to get watched because I don't have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of subscribers like some channels do. Speaking of subscribing, if I can say the word correctly, you may want to consider doing that yourself as well. There's plenty more content on the channel that you may be interested in. I did tons of content for Pillars of Eternity, the game that this is very similar to, of course. So you may want to check out some of my character guides for that, for example, if you're interested in that game. And this channel mainly focuses on 4X content, so if you like that type of game, please check out my homepage and playlist as well. If you have any comments or questions, please use the comment section. If it's something to do with a Let's Play, or I don't know, if there's something on your mind that you want to ask, or just if you want to say hello, that would be great. And last thing, I have a Patreon page, and I'd just like to let you know about that. Patreon is a service that lets people support channels like my own by giving donations, usually once a month, or you can do it once off if you happen to want to do that. You can do it, well, you can do a small or large donation, whatever you wish, basically, from $1 upwards. And I'd just like to thank my existing patrons as well. Patrons, without them, my channel just simply wouldn't be going at this stage. I really need them to help survive, basically, and more views as well that I get, that helps as well. So I'm very grateful for you for watching this video and any of my videos. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you next time for the next video in my Tyranny Let's Play.